He has died more than 4,000 times, burned alive, stabbed, crushed, poisoned, and every single time he opens his eyes again, 24 hours in the past, stronger than before. This is the story of the weakest hunter in the world, who turned death itself into a weapon. One day, a tower appeared in the middle of Seoul, 100 floors. Nobody knew who built it or why. Inside, every floor was its own world, filled with monsters, traps, and treasures beyond imagination. Humanity sent in hunters, and the tower watched them. Mysterious beings called constellations chose their favorites, granting them skill cards. Supernatural powers ranked from F to SSS. The strongest hunters became celebrities, billionaires, living gods. And at the very top stood rank 1, Yu Su-ha, the Flame Emperor, the hero of humanity, the man everyone wanted to be, everyone, including him, Kim Gong-ja, an orphan with no family, no money, and no talent. 32 years old, and still stuck at F rank, the lowest rank a hunter can have. For 11 years, Gong-ja crawled through the tower's lowest floors, mocked, beaten, invisible. While he ate cold noodles in a basement apartment, the Flame Emperor cleared floor 40. The first human in history to do it. Gong-ja watched every video, read every article, and deep inside, his admiration was rotting into something darker. Envy. Pure, burning envy. Why him? Why not me? I want to be like you. I want it so badly I could die. He didn't know the tower was listening. It heard the loudest, ugliest envy in the entire world, and it found it interesting. You have awakened an S-rank skill. The skill was called, I want to be like you. Its effect? When Gong-ja is killed, he copies one skill from his killer. There was just one problem. To use his new power, he had to die. What's the point if I have to die? He got his answer sooner than he expected. That night, a fire broke out in the city. Hunters rushed in to save people, but the one everyone was waiting for, the strongest of them all, was late. And when the Flame Emperor finally arrived, he refused to help. The hero of humanity turned his back on burning people, right in front of Gong-ja's eyes. Something inside Gong-ja snapped. The man he had worshipped for 11 years was a fraud, and in that moment, envy became something else entirely, purpose. But then Gong-ja saw something he was never supposed to see. The Flame Emperor, killing in cold blood. And now there was a witness. The strongest hunter in the world looked straight at him and burned him alive. Gong-ja woke up, in his bed, 24 hours earlier, alive. His skill had activated, and the power he copied from his killer was the Flame Emperor's greatest secret. The reason the man could never lose. A skill that rewinds time by 24 hours, every time its owner dies. The Flame Emperor's cheat code now belonged to the man he murdered. But before hunting a human, he needed a test. The tower's 5th floor, home of the Goblin King, a monster that had slaughtered entire raid parties. Gong-ja walked in alone. No armor, no team, no plan. Except one. Die. Learn. Repeat. The Goblin King killed him in 11 seconds. The second time, he lasted a minute. The third time, the monster couldn't touch him. Gong-ja had memorized every swing, every step, every breath. On the 4th attempt, the king fell. And that F-rank nobody became the first hunter in history to clear a floor completely alone. Gong-ja understood 2 things. First, Yu Su-ha was a monster wearing a hero's face. Second, with this skill, death was no longer the end. It was a tool, and the copied skill had a hidden option: die enough times in a row, and instead of one day, he could rewind 11 years, all the way back to before Yu Su-ha ever awakened his power. Kill the Flame Emperor before he ever becomes the Flame Emperor. That was the plan. The price? He would have to die over 4,000 times by his own hand. So he did. Again, and again, and again. Death by fire, death by blade, death by falling. Each one real, each one remembered, The pain never got easier. Most people would have shattered after 10 deaths. He endured thousands, held together by nothing but rage and one single thought: I will reach you. Death number 4091. The tower accepted the price, and time broke. 11 years unwound in a single heartbeat. Gongja opened his eyes in a world where nobody knew the name Flame Emperor yet, where Yu Su-ha was still a nobody, where everything could still be changed. 11 years of humiliation erased. This time, the story would be his. But killing a future rank 1 hunter isn't simple. Even a young one, Gongja needed information, and he had the perfect tool for gathering it: dying. Loop after loop, he tracked Yu Su-ha's schedule, every route, every habit. 10 more deaths, just for reconnaissance. To him, it was Tuesday. And then he realized something bigger. If dying copies his killer's power, why stop at surveillance? In this era, there were monsters far stronger than young Yu Su-ha. Living skill vaults, walking around unguarded, like this man, Marcus Callenberry, the current rank 1, a living legend of the sword, and famously, completely unhinged, a man who talks to ghosts nobody else can see. The stories about Marcus were legend. A hunter once asked him, politely, how his grandchildren were doing. Marcus cut him down on the spot. Another one joked about it at a banquet. He didn't finish the sentence. 3 of the world's top-ranked hunters, all dead, all for the same reason. Gongja's plan was insane in its simplicity: provoke the strongest swordsman alive and get executed. Copy a top-tier combat skill from the #1 hunter in the world. Marcus watched this shabby stranger dodge his attack and decided he was facing a first-rate assassin. Then Gongja pushed the one button you never push with Marcus Callenberry. He mentioned the man's grandchildren. It worked instantly. 24 hours earlier, Gongja woke up grinning. A skill stolen from the rank 1 hunter himself. Surely a golden triple S card was waiting for him. Instead, he got an A+. Swordmaster, the strongest man in the world. And his best card was an A+? What a ripoff. But then he froze, because in his empty room, someone spoke, right next to his ear. A voice nobody else could hear, and in the corner of the room, a shadow that should not exist. Something had followed him back.
This is where the real story begins. Gongja's first thought was simple. 4,000 deaths had finally broken his brain, because floating in the middle of his one-room apartment was a man. Translucent, red-haired, dressed in robes from another century, and talking very, very loudly. No one else could ever see him. No camera could record him. As far as the world was concerned, this man did not exist. The ghost introduced himself with absolutely zero modesty. The Sword Emperor, the greatest swordsman of another world, a living legend who entered the tower and cut his way up, floor after floor, alone. 99 floors. Read that again. The tower has 100. This man fought to the very doorstep of the top, higher than any human in recorded history, and there, 1 floor from the end, he died. But the tower doesn't waste legends. His soul was sealed into a skill card, Sword Constellation, A+ rank, the exact card Gongja had just copied from Marcus Callenberry. And suddenly, the world's biggest mystery solved itself. This was Marcus's secret. The reason the #1 hunter talks to himself. The reason his swordsmanship looks inhuman. He wasn't crazy. For decades, he's had the greatest swordmaster in existence whispering in his ear. And now, there were 2 copies of that ghost. One with Marcus, one standing in a moldy basement apartment staring at an unemployed F rank in torn sweatpants. The ghost looked around the room, at the instant noodle cups, at the cracked walls, at Gongja, and said exactly what he thought. I refuse. Why would a legend waste his afterlife teaching a nobody with 0 talent, 0 money, and a haircut that looked like a crime scene? He'd rather float in silence for eternity. So Gongja smiled, that cold, patient smile of a man who died 4,000 times and got up 4,001. And he made the ghost an offer no swordmaster in history had ever heard before. Teach me anything. Push me past every limit. Use every forbidden technique that would kill a normal student. A pause. Because I can't die. The Sword Emperor went silent. For the first time in decades, the dead legend smiled. Every master's nightmare is breaking their student. But a student who respawns? That's not a student. That's a blank check. The training began the next morning, and it began with poison. Aura, the energy that separates real hunters from cannon fodder. Most hunters need years of careful practice to awaken it. Force it too fast, and your energy channels tear apart. Hunters who rush aura end up half paralyzed for life. Potions can't fix it. Nothing can. The Sword Emperor's training plan? Chug aura elixirs like water. Force the channels open. Let the body rip itself apart. Die screaming. And then wake up yesterday, with the progress still carved into his soul. Because here's the terrifying loophole the ghost figured out immediately. The body resets. The memory doesn't. Muscle can be rebuilt in a day. Experience is forever. So Gongjia drank, and burned, and died, and drank again. What takes normal hunters years of gentle meditation, he brute forced through a revolving door of agony. Then came the field test. The tower's third floor. Orcs. Walking mountains of muscle. Simple attack patterns, devastating power, skin like leather armor. The kind of monster that turns overconfident hunters into a stain. In other words, the perfect training dummy. If the dummy is you. The Sword Emperor's teaching method had exactly 3 steps. Dodge or die. Channel your aura or die. Learn or die. There was no step 4. Gongjia died. A lot. Axe to the chest. Axe to the everything. And every time, the world rewound 24 hours, and the lesson resumed mid-sentence. The ghost didn't even stop talking. The Sword Emperor hid the deadly parts of the training on purpose. Why warn a student about a lethal mistake when the mistake itself is the fastest teacher? Gongjia called it psychotic. The ghost called it efficient curriculum design. Days blurred into loops, loops into weeks. His footwork sharpened. His aura stopped flickering and started obeying. The garbage F-rank body was still garbage, but the mind inside it was becoming something the tower had never seen. A swordsman with infinite attempts. And then, mid-training, came the discovery that broke the entire game wide open. An orc killed him. Standard Tuesday. But when he woke up, a new card was waiting. Copied. From the orc. Monsters have skills. And his ability doesn't care who the killer is. Every beast, every boss, every horror in this 100-floor tower just became a walking skill vault with his name on it. Weeks of deaths later, the impossible stood on the 3rd floor, an F-rank nobody wrapped in visible aura, cutting down orcs like a veteran. Hunters watch aura users the way normal people watch Olympic athletes, and this one trained for it by dying. Now, about the relationship between the student and the dead legend. It was not a beautiful master-disciple bond. It was a non-stop verbal knife fight. The ghost mocked his talent, his face, his apartment, his life choices. Gongjia mocked the ghost's ego, his ancient fashion sense, and the fact that a legend was now homeless and haunting a basement. They deserved each other. So naturally, it escalated into a bet. The target, the tower's 10th floor. A cursed stage with a perfect record, 100% failure. Just weeks earlier, 2 of the world's top 10 hunters had marched in publicly, and marched back out humiliated. The entire community agreed. Floor 10 is unbeatable. The terms. Gongjia clears Floor 10, solo. And the legendary Sword Emperor, the man who conquered 99 floors, addresses him as Sir Gongjia for the rest of eternity. The ghost laughed for a solid minute, then shook on it. Easiest bet of his afterlife. An E rank beating the floor that broke the elites? Impossible. He was about to learn that impossible is just a word people use before Gongjia shows ash, but into light. And then the sky above the entire tower exploded. Floor 10, cleared. The stage with a 100% failure rate. The wall that humiliated the world's elite. solved by an E rank, with 0 kills, 0 spells, and 1 act of kindness. Somewhere in the fog, a legendary ghost quietly paid his debt. Through gritted, ghostly teeth, in a voice full of hate, Sir Gongja. He would regret that bet for eternity. And then the world lost its collective mind. Every hunter forum, every news channel, every guild war room. One question: who cleared floor 10? No guild claimed it. No name appeared on any roster. A ghost story of their own. An anonymous nobody had just rewritten the record books. The strongest hunters alive stopped what they were doing and started hunting for him. The great guilds wanted to sign him. The rankers wanted to test him. And some just wanted to know what kind of monster solves the unsolvable. Gongja, meanwhile, wanted a coffee. He had no idea that the most dangerous people on the planet were already closing in on one shabby young man with a dead legend floating over his shoulder. But far away from the noise, the cameras, and the manhunt, a clock was ticking. In a cheap apartment, a quiet, ordinary young man was living his last unremarkable weeks. His name is Yu Su-ha, and with every sunrise, he is one day closer to the summer morning when the Flame Emperor wakes up. 11 years of humiliation, 4,091 deaths. All of it comes down to reaching that man first. Rewind a few days, a quiet cafe. Gongja, a cup of coffee, and a smug, invisible ghost rating his life choices. The perfect afternoon. Then a brown cat jumped onto his table. A cute, fluffy, completely ordinary brown cat that had been following him for 3 streets. And then the cat unfolded. Fur into silk, paws into gloves. In the blink of an eye, an elegant noblewoman was sitting across from him, smiling like she owned the building. The Countess, leader of one of the 5 great guilds, world's top 10, and she brought friends. One by one, the door kept ringing. A hooded figure with serpent eyes, Viper. A walking fortress of holy armor, the Paladin. A robed fanatic with judging eyes, the Heresy Inquisitor. And a woman whose shadow moved on its own, the Black Witch. 5 of the strongest hunters alive, crammed into one small cafe, all staring at a broke 20-something in a worn hoodie. The barista quietly considered a career change. They all wanted the same thing. The anonymous monster who solo cleared floor 10. Recruitment offers hit the table like poker chips. Money, gear, guild backing, fame. But Gongja had spent 11 years watching these people from the gutter, reading every interview, every scandal, every rumor. He knew their public faces, and he could see straight through to what each of them actually wanted from him. The Countess wasn't offering friendship. She was collecting an asset before her rivals could. The guilds weren't welcoming a genius. They were containing a threat. Flattering words, beautiful contracts, and a leash inside every one of them. So he smiled, said something polite and completely meaningless, and signed nothing. The ghost cackled with pride. Look at you, lying to the most powerful people alive with a straight face. I taught you nothing, and you're still learning. Because Gongja couldn't afford a leash. Not now. His real mission had a deadline the world knew nothing about, and the clock was already screaming. Yu Su-ha, age 21. In this timeline, not an emperor, not a legend. Just another F-rank hunter grinding the tower's 2nd floor for pocket change. Gongja had already burned 10 deaths just mapping his life. Every route, every schedule, the cheap apartment, the 11 a.m. wake-ups, the afternoon hunts among the tattooed meadow wolves of floor 2. 11 years of worship, 4,000 deaths of hatred, and now the man behind all of it was finally in reach. Completely ordinary, completely unaware, and completely mortal. The plan was almost insultingly simple. Gongja covered himself in blood, his own, there was plenty of practice, staggered onto the hunting ground, and collapsed in front of his idol. Please, a healing potion. And here, the last illusion died, because young Yu Su-ha looked down at a dying stranger and went through his wallet first. No hesitation, no pity. The future hero of humanity found the wallet light and drew his sword on a wounded man to finish the robbery. 11 years before the burning building, 11 years before the murder Gongja witnessed, he was already this, rotten from the start. Something in Gongjia went very quiet. The worship, the envy, the last stupid hope that maybe, before the power, there was a good man in there. All of it, gone. What happened next took 3 seconds. A kick where philosophy ends. A knife. And the man he died 4,091 times to reach dropped dead on the grass of floor 2. No fireworks, no system announcement, no catharsis. Gongjia stood over the body of his life's obsession and felt almost nothing. Revenge, it turns out, is a very quiet sound. Mission complete, 11 years early. The Flame Emperor would never be born. Right? A few hours later, Gongjia allowed himself one small celebration, a drink at a quiet bar. And that's where the universe sent the bill. The door opened, gray hair, black long coat, an ornate sword. Marcus Callenbury, the world's current #1, walked in and looked directly at him. Here's the problem with dying 4,000 times. It leaves marks that certain monsters can see. To Marcus's senses, this shabby kid was soaked in death, a kill count that screamed professional assassin, sent, obviously, by a rival guild. Gongjia opened his mouth to explain. Marcus was faster than the explanation. 24 hours earlier, Gongjia woke up in his bed, annoyed, beheaded by a paranoid grandpa over a misunderstanding, embarrassing but fine. He'd just avoid the bar this time. Then he checked the news. Yu Suha, alive, hunting on floor 2, like nothing ever happened. And the full horror of his own power finally landed. His regression doesn't just rewind him, it rewinds the world. Every time Gongjia dies, every single thing he accomplished in those 24 hours is erased, including his revenge. He could kill Yu Suha 100 times, 1,000, but the moment anything kills Gongjia, a monster, a trap, one paranoid swordsman with grandfather issues, his target crawls right back out of the grave. His greatest weapon was resurrecting his worst enemy, over and over and over. The ghost summarized it with his usual bedside manner. Congratulations, you've invented a revenge with an expiry date. So the mission changed. Killing Suha wasn't enough. Gongjia had to kill him and then not die. Ever. In a world where he dies professionally. Step 1. Money. And here, 4,000 loops of accumulated knowledge finally paid dividends. Literally. The national lottery. Gongjia knew the winning numbers the way you know your own birthday. 1 ticket, 1 jackpot. Problem broke, deleted. Step 2. Power. Elixirs by the crate. Training with the ghost cranked from lethal to war crime. Every loop, sharper footwork, cleaner aura, one more copied skill in the deck. Step 3. Practice on the target. Yes, he kept killing Yu Suha, partly to refine the approach, partly, the ghost suspected, out of pure spite. Every loop where Gongjia died to a monster or a mistake, Suha revived and got killed again. The most cursed morning routine in history. All while dodging one very specific problem. Marcus Callenbury, who now half remembered a suspicious young man that his instincts screamed about. The world's #1 was slowly turning into Gongjia's personal natural disaster. But all of this was buying time before the real deadline, because Gongjia knew the date. He'd memorized it 11 years ago like a scar. June 7th, Yu Suha's birthday, the morning the tower hands him his awakening, and with it, the EX rank returner's clockwork watch. The exact time-rewinding power Gongjia stole from him in the original timeline. And the math of that morning is nightmare fuel. If Suha awakens, then killing him stops working entirely. A man with a death rewind can undo his own murder. 2 time-benders erasing each other's moves forever. Checkmate becomes impossible. 1 chance, 1 morning. Kill him permanently before the tower makes him unkillable, or spend eternity in a duel with a mirror. The night of June 6th, Gongjia didn't sleep. He sat on a rooftop across from a cheap apartment building, watching one dark window. The ghost, for once, said nothing. Somewhere behind that window slept a petty, rotten, ordinary young man who in a few hours would either die a nobody or wake up as the beginning of everything Gongja spent 4,000 deaths trying to erase. 11 years of humiliation, the fire, the murder he witnessed, the flames on his own skin. 4,091 deaths. Every single one of them led to this exact sunrise. The sky began to turn gray, then gold, and high above the city, the tower's rings began to glow brighter, as if it was watching too, as if it was interested. Gongja stood up, cracked his neck, and walked toward the building where the Flame Emperor would be born, or buried. What happens when a man who cannot stay dead finally faces the morning that decides everything? And why does the tower itself seem to be watching this one apartment? Part 4 is already in the works. Subscribe and drop a like. Every like pushes this story to more Manhwa fans, and the faster we grow, the faster Part 4 drops. See you in the tower.